Boy, it's really nice to see people in the gallery. I'm getting a signal. Are we still good? Yes, okay. Welcome to the Town Council meeting of January 23rd, 2024. And before we get started this evening, I wonder if our Deputy Mayor could read our land acknowledgement.
Certainly. We would like to acknowledge that we are meeting here today in Kespuutwick, one of the 7 districts of Mi'kma'ki, homeland of the Mi'kmaq people. We acknowledge the treaties of peace and friendship, and we thank the Mi'kmaq people for their generosity in sharing their homeland with us. We are all treaty people.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, and I'll call this meeting to order. And the first order of business is approval of this evening's agenda. Deputy Mayor.
I move that we approve the agenda for this evening's meeting.
A seconder, please. Thank you, Councillor Butler. Interim CAO, that's, I will introduce you in a moment, but that's, didn't quite come off my tongue yet. Is there anything to add to the agenda tonight?
No, Your Worship.
Thank you. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, that's passed. And we have 4 sets of minutes. Deputy Mayor, Town Council meeting of December 19th, 2023.
Get comfortable. I would move that we approve the minutes of the Town Council meeting for December 19, 2023.
Thank you. And a seconder, please. Thank you, Councillor Palmer. Are there any errors or omissions? Hearing none, all those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, that's passed. In-camera meeting of December 19th, 2023.
I would move that we approve the minutes of the Town Council in-camera meeting December 19, 2023.
Thank you. And a seconder, please. Councillor Butler, thank you. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, that's passed. Special Town Council in-camera meeting January 2nd, 2024.
I would move that we approve the special Town Council in-camera meeting minutes of January 2, 2024.
A seconder, please. Thank you, Councillor Madeira Voss. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, those are passed. And the last one, special Town Council meeting of January 9th, 2024.
I would like to move that the minutes of the special Town Council meeting of January 9, 2024 be approved as circulated and or amended.
Thank you. A seconder, please. Councillor Madeira Voss, and are there any errors, changes, omissions that anybody found? Seeing none, all those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Those are passed. All right, a few comments from me, and then I'll ask my colleagues if they would like to add anything. Gives me great pleasure to introduce, we have already met our interim CAO, Rob Simons. Rob is joining us for a few months. Our CAO, Aaron Bowden, has just this week moved over to a new position at Acadia. We're thrilled that Rob is with us, and he will be helping us bridge this time between Aaron leaving and a new permanent CAO coming. So welcome, Rob. I have had the pleasure of meeting with Rob, and I'm really looking forward to working with you. Couple of events coming up in the next few weeks that might be of interest. On February 1st, and I think all of council has been invited to this at the Kings County municipal offices, February 1st from 6 to 8. It is their event for the beginning of African Heritage Month, and I look forward to being there and to seeing others in the community there as well. And on February 2nd, and I understand this is something one must register for, but I think it's open to all, at the Community Oven, there Elder Lorraine Whitman will be there at noon. I think it goes from noon to 1:30, and there will be some food, of course, at the oven. And she's going to do a session on the 7 sacred teachings. So I look forward to that. I'd also note, and this will be in the town's event calendar, that due to some new senior staff coming, one, our interim CAO, and also our director of finance, our council meetings for February will be a little bit adjusted. So for those of you who find tonight interesting and want to sit in on future council meetings, Committee of the Whole is going to be later in the month on the 14th. And there will be a budget session. I'm not sure we've tied down the exact time, but sometime during the day on the 21st, and council will be a week later on the 27th. But that, I'm looking at Barb, will all be on the event section of our website. And it is, it's put on by the curling club, but
Put on by the
deputy
oven,
mayor,
going
but
to
it's
be
at the curling club. Thank you. Thank you. Do any members of council have any other events that they would like to share? Councillor Ingham.
Oh, just in keeping with some diversity, and I'll defer to Councillor Butler here too. The 27th, this coming Saturday, there's an literacy event at the Al Whittle Theatre. Were you going to say that? And I don't believe you're performing, but your counterpart is. And yeah, so it's a free event, and it is National Literacy Day. And there'll be some stories read by Robert Munch, and our previous mayor, Jeff Cant, will be reading some, and Jeff, your neighbor Jeff, is going to be reading some. And then there's a Lego afterwards. So it's all free. And I think the ages are from 3 to 12. So if anybody wanted to come on down there, and I believe we have advertised that on the website, if I'm correct, Barb, I think you've shared that on our website because the town is sponsoring part of it. So it is free. So everybody come on it.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay. Oh, sorry. Should. All right, that brings us to public input. We set aside a half an hour for that. Director Lake will help anybody who wants to come up and speak. I have checked, there's nobody coming in on Zoom. If there's anyone in the audience who would like to address council, we'll give you 3 minutes. We do set aside a half an hour, so if there's only a few people who want to speak, we will let you speak for 4. And questions or comments directed to the chair. We don't generally answer questions, but if there's a question that we can then take and get back to, that is our process. So I am wondering if there's anybody in the audience who wants to speak to council during public input. Just come up, and as I say, Director Lake can help you. If you would just say your name and your address and then speak.
Hello, my name's Chris Toplak. My address is 146 Main Street here in Wolfville, and I'm here with Mary Norton.
And my address is 27 Cobbler's Court.
And we're here as members of an ad hoc working group of citizens, advocates, and professionals who are deeply concerned about the ongoing housing crisis in Wolfville, and in particular, homelessness. We want to express our support for the homelessness update report that is on the council's agenda for tonight. We commend the staff who prepared it. We very much appreciate and support the respect and thoroughness that the staff demonstrated, the information they provided about available services in the area, and the actions they suggested. Housing is a human right. Every human deserves a safe, adequate, affordable place to call home. We advocate that the people who are living with homelessness and precarious housing in Wolfville are part of the discussion, have a voice in decisions and how and where actions are implemented.
So we would also like to offer support for the actions and to highlight the ones that we particularly were interested in. So for the immediate term, we'd like seek to create free 24 access to sanitary facilities within the downtown core of Wolfville through the installation of porta potties or by keeping available town facilities open overnight or partnering with a service organization that can have these facilities available 24/7. To create accessible centrally located storage lockers or containers to give insecurely housed people peace of mind to safely stow their belongings so that they can access further afield without fear of losing their possessions. to create or partner with an organization to provide an accessible meeting center that support staff and would have access to showers and laundry facilities. This space could also serve as a warming center as needed and would be available for people to meet with support workers and to access resources and also possibly to meet with others, just to have some company and support. So as soon as possible, we hope that there would be some partnership with appropriate service providers to have a street navigator operating in Wolfville to maintain contact with people in need of housing and to help them access available supports. Looking ahead, I'd like to see a commitment to create financial and regulatory supports for non-market housing providers, including supportive housing, single room occupancy, as well as long-term family housing, and put an end to exclusionary zoning practices in Wolfville. And again, I'd like to reiterate the need to and the desire to have people who are affected by homelessness and precarious housing to have a voice in how these actions might be implemented and where. And so we look forward to hearing your response, and we have
Okay.
copies of the letters.
Thank you. I was just going to say, if you have a copy, if you could give to our clerk, that would be helpful and she can. Thank you. Is there anybody else? Carolyn?
My name's Caroline Whitby. I live on Maple Avenue. I'm going to sort of comment and run, and so I hope my thoughts aren't too scattered. Over the last year or so, I've been learning about how council works, and I know I've still got a lot more to learn, and I'm going to touch on a few things, as a concern, a comment, and a suggestion. One, I understand tonight you're voting on the one-time operational funding for the WBDC. In principle, I support what they're trying to do. I am concerned, though, at this time with the grant that I understand is to benefit residents. I feel the benefit of the one-time funding for the gift cards is really going to benefit the merchants most. And based on my reading of the information that was provided, will provide a big benefit where it's been done before, primarily to the merchants involved. So I'm a little concerned that I don't see, like in this economic time, that this is where we should be spending our money. But I get the impression that it was geared to a funding pot. So I understand why they applied. But my question might be, if that money is not spent this year, will it go against what I understand could be a potential benefit, deficit to the town? And whether it could be used to help others in another way. So that's one comment. My other comment, I'm not directly involved with the group of citizens, but I have a note here about your homelessness update, and I know it's an important issue. One of these is a question, and I know this is long-term answers, but with the Welcome Center, will there be showers and could lockers be added to the Welcome Center? Although maybe in the long term, there'll be something around not only lockers and showers at the new library town hall complex, but perhaps even some space above for some non-market housing. In the meantime, though, however, I'd like to suggest that maybe the WBDC could spend some of their money on, if there was an interest by the respective people who may be experiencing homelessness, that we could provide them with passes to Acadia, maybe a pool pass, working with Acadia, some funding, a one-year pass. Pool pass at Acadia is $265. There's a locker for $70. That will be cost of $350. If the town or WBDC don't have that money, maybe we could apply to social services. But I think it's a way we could provide dignity to some people as they move about town. And just two other things I mentioned. I
Then
know
wrap
you're
up.
in budgeting processes. I know one of the budgetary items is paving for the Alex Colville Gallery. I would like to suggest that perhaps all you need to do is move the sign that's on the wall explaining each of the pictures. Because when I went and read the sign, I then had to step right back to look at the pictures. And maybe there's a way that we perhaps don't need quite as much new paving and maybe could consider moving the sign. Thank you.
Thanks, Kevin. Thank you.
My name is David Daniels, and I live at 3 Toy Lane. And I wanted to raise the issue of the special council meeting that was held last Monday or the 15th, whether it was held in accordance with the Municipal Government Act, which I don't think it was. So I just wanted to make you aware that there is a provision about when you can hold special meetings and that you should comply with those before a special meeting is held. I think the rationale was it was an emergency. That's not the definition. It's not, emergency is not defined in the act, the Municipal Government Act, but it is defined in another act, the Emergency Management Act. I won't go over the definition, but you should take a look and see that in the future, it's very important that the public gets proper notice, except if there's a real emergency. And I don't believe this was a real emergency for holding the meeting on the 15th. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Daniels. Would anybody else like to speak to council? Okay, seeing none, thank you very much for your input. We have this evening two items that are motions from Committee of the Whole. These items have obviously been part of Committee of the Whole, so they have been discussed at fair length by council. So if it seems that they go quicker, it's because council has discussed them. We do have a number of items that are new business where we will have staff reports and some comments by council, which doesn't mean that council cannot comment on the old business. It's just for the benefit of the public. Those items may go faster than if they had not been to Committee of the Whole. So I don't know, well, Laura, will you be presenting on anything on any of these? Okay. All right, so the first item is RFD 001 2024 municipal election statutory requirements. As I mentioned, this has been discussed. Would some member of council like to put that on the floor? Councillor McKay?
They're all separate, if I recall correctly.
Yes, I think you're right.
Okay. I would move the council approve as per section 114(4)B of the Municipal Elections Act, the date of Thursday, October 10th, 2024 as the first advanced polling day for the town of Wolfville municipal election.
And a seconder for that one, Councillor Madeira Voss. Are there any discussion, any comments, questions? Ready for the question? All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? That is passed. Oh, it is a long one. Go ahead. Councillor McKay, are you ready to do them all?
I'm ready. I would move that council approve as per section 31 of the Municipal Elections Act, the list of electors used in the most recent federal or provincial election be used as the method for producing the preliminary list of electors for the town of Wolfville municipal election 2024.
Thank you, Councillor Butler. Any comments or questions, council? Question? All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? That's passed.
I would move that council approve as per section 38(1) of the Municipal Elections Act, the date of September 6, 2024 as the date by which the amended list of electors is to be provided to the returning officer.
Thank you. A seconder, please. Deputy Mayor. Questions, comments? All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? That's passed.
I would move that council delegate as per section 41C of the Municipal Elections Act, the power to appoint a returning officer and assistant returning officer to the CAO.
Thank you. Counselor Madera Voss? Question? All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Oppose? Last one.
I would move that council delegate as per section 139(1)(a) of the Municipal Elections Act, the authority to make, revise, and amend the tariff of fees and expenses to be paid to any person for their services and expenses under the Municipal Elections Act, and may similarly revise and amend the tariff and to provide for a method of rendering and verifying accounts for payment to the CAO for the 2024 municipal election for the town of Wolfville.
Thank you. And the seconder, Counselor Butler. Any comments, questions, council? All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? That is passed. All right, RFD 003 2024 one-time operational funding request, WBDC. And I'm going to ask again, Counselor McKay as the representative to the WBDC. She would move this.
Sure. I would move that council approve $11,011 as a one-time operational grant contribution to the Wolfville Business Development Corporation to support a downtown Wolfville gift card program.
The seconder, please. I'm sorry, Counselor Palmer. Is there any discussion on this item? Deputy Mayor.
I'm wondering if, maybe you know, Counselor McKay, whether the market dollars that the Wolfville Farmers Market has, would something like that be included in this program, or is it just for like Main Street businesses?
It's for any business as long as they have a point of sale system. Because it has to be programmed in and the card has to be swiped, tapped, that kind of thing for the back end to work. I don't think the market has a point of sale system. Do they? Yeah, so the vendors themselves do. Right? Not the market itself, but the vendors do. So as long as they have a button that's programmable, they can use it.
The Wednesday market does.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Question? All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? That is passed. It brings us to new business, nuisance party bylaw amendments, chapter 97, second reading. I don't know, if one of our staff is going to speak to that.
There's no changes.
There's no changes, okay. Oh, I'm sorry, it's just second reading. All right. Counselor Butler.
I move that council give second reading to the amended nuisance party bylaw, chapter 97, as attached to RFD 059-2023.
Seconder. Thank you, Deputy Mayor. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That is. Sorry. No, that's okay. All right. Just let me get my. Okay, so now we are on the RFD 064 2023 electronic voting bylaw amendments, chapter 102, also second reading. Thank you. Councilor Madera Voss.
I would move the council give second reading to the amended electronic voting bylaw, chapter 102. RFD 064-2023 electronic voting bylaw.
Okay, and Councillor Ingham seconds it. Councillor Butler, did you have a comment?
No, I just wanted to.
Okay. Any discussion by council? No? Ready for the question? All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? And that is passed. And this, we do have a staff. I think Lindsay and Barb, are you doing the presentation? This is the report on homeless update.
Thank you, Mayor Donovan. Through you to members of council, to staff, with a welcome to CAO Simons for joining us tonight. Nice to have you here. And through you, Mayor Donovan, to members in the gallery. It's always nice to have members of the community here, especially for a difficult topic like this. So tonight we are going to bring more information to council. We started sharing some information on December 19th, and staff have had discussions about this. We weren't in a position to share all of the information that we had been gathering, that we had been working on. And as a result of that, often we don't have the ability to support council in moving forward. So this is an opportunity for us to bring more information to you. We've also taken some additional time to reach out to resources across the region and get some differing perspectives. Of course, as council is aware, your decisions are often only as good as the information that your staff are providing. So we really want to go a lot further this evening. Before Lindsay goes through her presentation, I just want to remind council and folks who are here tonight who might not have been here on the 19th, that staff were talking about this issue before the 19th of December. Primarily, it kind of started to hit our radar for a couple of reasons. Our compliance team, Caden and Marin, were definitely noticing that there were more people who were unhoused in the community. They were developing relationships with these folks and interacting in the most supportive way that they could. Our park staff were also reporting back operational health and safety concerns about dealing with human waste. So that brought the discussion to our management team to try and look at it from that OH&S perspective. And that started kind of building internally with what were some solutions that we could take that way. Other discussions were starting. And I think as you know, it was happening in Wolfville and right across the region, this is a very fluid situation and things really have grown since that time. As folks are aware, we now have 2 tents that are set up in the community. And I'm sure we didn't think that we would be where we are today. So I'm going to hand this over to Lindsay. We're going to go through a presentation. It's fairly lengthy. Again, this is a great opportunity for us to share information. If you have questions as we're going through, please stop us. And if we get to the end of the presentation, what we are hoping is that this is an opportunity for some discussion and for council to help staff understand what additional information we can bring back. We want to get people basically to really get to that level of comfort and to have all the resources that you need in order to provide support to members of the community.
If I may, before you start, and just because we have a gallery and some of you people in the gallery have not been to council, when Barb said, if you have questions, she was referring to council. Some of you in the gallery may have questions. This is not an opportunity for those, but if you have questions, please find any member of council and we will get those questions answered. But I just wanted to clarify in case you wanted to ask a question.
Thank you, Mayor Donovan. And now I'd like to hand over the presentation to our community planner, Lindsay. Councillor Palmater.
Sure. Are we going to have a question period at the end of our meeting? We don't, only Kyle. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Barb, and good evening, Mayor and Council, and to everyone in the gallery. So I want to start this update just with a reminder of our housing continuum. So this is the continuum that shows all members of our community, everybody from the unhoused folks through to those living in transitional and supportive housing models, subsidized and non-market housing options through to market rental and market homeowner options as well. So this is just something, particularly in the planning department, we keep in mind in terms of our land use documents, because we have to consider the full spectrum here. And we do have many tools available to help us address everything from supportive and transitional housing through to market homeowner options. And a lot of those tools are have been discovered, or not discovered, but identified through our Housing Accelerator Fund Action Plan. One of the gaps with that, though, was the homelessness piece. We weren't looking specifically at tools to help us address that. And so since the December meeting of council, we've been spending a lot of time learning about what tools are out there that we could explore for homelessness. So those will be described this evening. This is a reminder from a presentation, I believe, that was given to Committee of the Whole from Alicia Christie and Mary Sweetman on the service-based count from 2022. This is a service-based count from West Hants to Digby, looking at what service providers are participating in of their clients who do they know are at risk of or experiencing homelessness. And during that time, there was 231 individuals identified. And certainly that is a underestimation of what the actual counts are. Among those 231 individuals are an additional 124 children who are attached to those individuals. So that just gives sort of a baseline snapshot of the region. When we look at where folks are residing based on that study, almost half are within Kings County, so they're in the region or close by. And again, half of them are accessing support services in Kentville, and Kentville is a very resource-rich center in that regard. So that makes quite a bit of sense, but it's worthwhile noting that, you know, Kentville is our neighbor essentially. So when we look at Wolfville specifically, we're seeing a rise in people who are sleeping rough in our community. And like Barb had mentioned, we staff are encountering 4 to 5 on a regular basis, performing work tasks, whether that is parks crews doing parks maintenance or waste removal, compliance duties as well. And we know that these folks are accessing services from outside of town boundaries. I know Barb wants to jump in here for a moment.
Lindsay and I had an opportunity to meet with the folks from Open Arms. They were very generous with their time, and we really treat these individuals as experts in this area, especially dealing with this crisis and having local knowledge. So when we met with them to kind of really find out what were some best practices, what suggestions did they have, what could we be doing? The good news from my perspective was they were very familiar with the folks that were in our community, which indicates to us that those connections have been made with shelter. So shelter is being accessed when the individuals want to be supported by shelter, they make that decision. Open Arms is providing free return transportation to shelter. I know council have had a lot of questions about that. It is up to the individual to decide to go to shelter if that's the case. The other information that Open Arms shared with us was, again, what we've kind of included in the information report, which is that there is more that can be done by providing some services within the town of Wolfville. So those would be situations where if there was a facility that a worker could be present, and that's not town staff, that would be somebody who is an expert in this area, and they would be able to interact with folks, provide food. Ideally, there would be laundry facilities, there would be shower facilities, and there would be an opportunity to start to build relationships with individuals so that perhaps they might be more comfortable seeking shelter on a more regular basis or being able to transition into some other supports.
So we have also been receiving quite a bit of correspondence from residents who are concerned about the folks who are sleeping rough in town. They're concerned about the survival of these folks when the temperatures drop. And they have contacted us stating that they are willing to donate items themselves to help support these folks. So we know that this is really on the mind of many of our residents. And we're trying to use the service providers as a compass to help us guide those folks to resources that are helpful that they can work with to support. We know that one of these actions that has come up quite recently is the ice fishing tent or two that are behind the library. So when we look at why is this happening in Wolfville, when we haven't traditionally maybe seen this, certainly not to this scale, the sad reality is that rural homelessness is not new. Homelessness in Wolfville is not new. Just up until recently, it's been invisible or hidden, which is very common in more rural areas. And the primary factor behind the increase that we're seeing is the lack of affordable, stable, and supportive housing options for folks to move into when their housing situation becomes more precarious and they need a bit of support. Without those in place, folks will end up on the streets or in shelters, and we're also faced with a low or no turnover rate at those facilities as well. So people are winding up on park benches and in tents. This is intensified, of course, through the rising cost of living and rents and the low vacancy rates that we do have. So looking at why this is an important matter is really important to note that a disproportionate number of people who are experiencing homelessness in Nova Scotia identify as Indigenous, Black, and have a disability or a mental health challenge. Folks who are sheltering outside frequently suffer from many traumatic experiences, abuse, social isolation, food insecurity, stress, physical and mental health outcomes, and violence. And that makes it very difficult for folks to recover from their experience. When someone is homeless for 6 months or longer, it's referred to as chronically homeless. And that is also much more difficult to recover from than a shorter amount of time. Like I mentioned in the earlier slide, there's so few supports out there for folks once they reach that point that they don't have access to a home. And if we look at Halifax, they have 1,068 known individuals to be experiencing homelessness, and of those 765 are considered chronically homeless. So that means that they are going to require a number of supports to be able to enter and stabilize into permanent housing. So really there's a tidal wave of services that are needed to help support these folks, and this is certainly a worsening situation. And housing is one of the key things that can really help to alleviate those stressors that are associated with homelessness that were mentioned earlier. And Housing First is just one model to help prevent that situation from happening. It's a well-documented and proven method in terms of intervening with homelessness. And the basic principle here is to get folks housed first and then come in with supports, wraparound services to address any health, mental health, addiction, employment and education needs that need to be met so that they can stabilize in permanent housing. So altogether, that's not directly the town's role, but we can certainly support a model such as that through requiring affordable housing units and working with nonprofit housing providers and other aspects such as appropriately zoning land and having correct or appropriate density requirements. And these are many things that are also outlined in our housing action plan. This is just a graphic again to describe what Housing First looks like compared to a housing ready model, which leads to many opportunities for someone to fall out of the system and remain homeless for a longer period of time versus getting somebody into permanent housing and then addressing those issues. And there's a lot more nuance to these that isn't really in this slide. There's a lot of care that has to be put into ensuring that all the pieces are in place, like having relations with landlords and that sort of thing for that to be successful. Looking at some of the service providers in the area, these are some of the folks that, or there are some people on here that we have been in touch with as we've been working through this. We're in actually quite a resource-rich area in terms of service providers. Most of these are in Kentville, a couple are in Windsor, but there's certainly not a shortage of people with lots of expertise in this area that we can reach out to. And when we look at what other communities are doing, looking in Kings County, there will be 20 pallet shelters arriving near the Valley Regional Hospital in the next couple of months is the impression I have. Kentville Police has a community navigator, which is a plainclothes officer who performs wellness checks on individuals. And Kentville Town staff are working on their response to homelessness through a policy procedure and staff training approach. Halifax has a number of actions that they are carrying out, many of which are related to shelters. So they have designated outdoor shelter sites. They're also going to be putting up a bunch of the pallet shelters, activating more overnight emergency shelters. And they also use hotels, and the Halifax Forum will be opening as well soon for overnight shelters. They also have a navigator outreach program. However, it's a municipal staff person, or I think they have a few of them that are doing that. And they're also doing public education. So there's some really informative brief videos on their YouTube channel for Halifax Regional Municipality that help to address a lot of the questions that we do get as staff. And is a great resource. They've also created a framework to help them address homelessness. So the framework has 4 key areas, and the purpose of this framework is to help the municipality do what it's positioned to do well and allow other service providers to carry out the roles that they are better positioned to do. The first action area is supporting residents who are sheltering outside, and they're doing that through their their street navigator staff persons, and that would be like doing check-ins and delivering survival supplies, that type of thing. They're supporting precariously housed people to stay housed, and this is referred to as shelter diversion. What you can do here is either fund service providers to support with outstanding bills, or to complete minor repairs to help folks stay housed so that they don't have to leave their housing due to a bill that they cannot pay. Public education efforts, I just mentioned the video, they can also help to make campaigns for other organizations through funding and that type of thing. And they are also facilitating construction and maintenance of affordable housing units. So this is also quite similar to some of our actions in our housing action plan, including surplus land and funding affordable projects through grant funding and zoning and density requirements as well. Some of the more on the ground actions that they are taking that we could look at include, again, the outreach support, maintenance and cleanup at any designated shelter sites, provisions of toilets, garbage collection, power, running water on some sites, construction of modular units. They're also exploring different shelter options such as 2-code, tiny homes, and they're also applying a gender lens to their policies and practices as they acknowledge that the challenges differ for women, transgender, and non-binary folks who are precariously housed. And they acknowledge that this situation is worsening. So they do have many other initiatives to pull from as things move on. So in terms of what the town is doing, as I have been mentioning through this presentation, we do have our housing action plan, and in that there are many tools that can help us in the medium term to increase the amount of housing units and affordable housing units. There's opportunities for public education, so helping to inform people so they understand why we're doing what we're doing in terms of housing. And there's also direct financial support for affordable housing. So as we mentioned as well, we have been in discussion with several organizations to understand the next steps that we can take. And the list here is really just a snapshot of those folks. And through those conversations, we have 3 areas to explore. The first, of course, is the porta potty, which we discussed briefly at the December meeting. But the idea here is for there to be a 24-hour washroom that is accessible for folks who have been sheltering. It's also noted that this location at the library is a needed amenity for users of Roby Tufts Park and the community oven, as often they try to access the washroom at the library or elsewhere, but they may not be open during the times of the events, or they may be occupied. As Barb mentioned, it's really important to help reduce occupational health and safety hazards for town staff, as well as hazards for other members in the community. It reduces the need for additional cleanup, and they can be serviced every week by the company that provides them, and they can also be monitored by town staff as well. The storage lockers have been identified as a key need, and this was through discussion with Open Arms. And this is really to allow folks to feel a sense of security and safety so they can leave their belongings behind, particularly during an extreme weather event, where some folks may decide that to them, it's more important to stay with their belongings and weather the storm. And really, that can be a very risky situation. So that's one opportunity to increase the sense of safety. And that would be something, again, potentially on library property, and it would be something, a town initiative and maintained by town staff. Community pantry would be an opportunity to provide not just for our unhoused folks, but for anybody who's in need of food and personal care items, bus tickets, etc. And this, again, would be located near the library and maintained by town staff. But we do know that there are many volunteers who are very keen on this idea in town, and that the library is already providing some guests with snacks and bus tickets. But the difference really is that you have to go into the library and you have to ask, and that's a very vulnerable thing for folks to do. So having a pantry that can just be accessed without interacting with anyone could be very helpful to increase the privacy for those who are in need. So that's it from me. We do have some questions here on the next slide as well.
Thank you, Lindsay. So as I mentioned when we were starting the process this evening, we really want to share the information that we've been able to gather. It's easier to have a difficult conversation when we're kind of at the same spot with information. So at this point in time, we want to kind of go through with council to really welcome some dialogue and discussion. We want to find out if there are points that we can clarify. If we can do it now, we will. If not, we will happily bring back that information to council as soon as possible. We really need to know where the gaps are. So what additional questions do members of council have? And just in general terms, what other information can we bring back? Obviously, as I said earlier, this is a fluid situation, but what resources can we share with council to help you with the process that you have ahead?
Thank you. Members of council, Deputy Mayor.
I have a question. Having been down at the Roby Tufts Park today, I understand that an electrical line that could be attached to an electric blanket inside a tent would be very helpful during the months of January, February, March. I wonder if staff could look at whether that's feasible or not. I know in the Grand Parade in Halifax, electrical is being supplied, and that's probably safer than having propane gas. Probably a lot safer. So that would be a question in my mind.
So through the mayor to the deputy mayor, thank you for that question. Staff are working, so through Devon's department, as soon as we knew that shelters had been put in place, we've made sure that both James and Amanda are aware so that they can have an opportunity to provide whatever support is necessary. We want to ensure that people are safe and that we're not creating more of a risk for vulnerable people in our community. So I trust that that is underway, and we will get that information back to you once we have a chance to speak with Amanda and James.
Thank you. Councillor Ingham and then Councillor Madeira Voss.
Yes, I would want to really have staff have a look at that to make sure you're safe, because just last night on the news, we heard there was another fire. So that tent is very close to the library, so we wouldn't want to put anybody in danger at all. It does provide shelter, but it's not providing warmth either. Sorry, I have a question about the outreach workers and the navigators. I know Kentville has one, and with 231 homeless or living rough people from, was it West Hants to Digby? Can we get a handle on how many outreach workers, and is there can we do something to, like, homelessness doesn't cross, there's no boundaries on it, right? So to say this person works here, this person works there, how many do we have? And, you know, can we have a sharing of that service per se, because they're on the ground working. And when I look at homelessness, it's so individual to me. Like, every case is individual, right? So I don't want to say this is what their issue is, this is what their issue is. It's individual, and I don't have the knowledge and nor the skill set to be able to say that. So if we could talk to an outreach worker and get an idea of how many there are in this Kings County area, because I don't know anybody, and I'm learning here tonight as I see everybody in the audience presenting, and I've learned also. And the other question is I know we had the porta potty issue brought to us and requesting us back in December. I think it came to council and it came really quick, and we weren't, I guess we weren't really sure on a definitive answer, so we didn't. So given the fact that you did mention Robitus Park and the community oven, where would it be placed? Some people are concerned that it's just going to be placed in behind the library, and is that an ideal location? Where did staff suggest to place the porta potty?
The site that was decided is on the west side of the library, which is just across from the farmer's market. So there's, so not on the back, yeah. And that spot was chosen. I went and I visited Alice Green at the library, and we looked around to find a suitable spot. That is a covered area where the roof hangs over quite a bit, so it would make things like snow clearance easier, and also would help to keep people dry if they were sleeping nearby and they wanted to go to the washroom in the middle of the night, for example. So there were a number of reasons why we selected that site.
I guess I see what you're talking about, but my concern is if you want to still use it for Robitussin and people that are there, and also the community oven, will they know that it's there to be able to be used, also.
Councillor Madeira Voss.
Thank you, Mayor Donovan, and thank you for that presentation. I think I'm losing my voice. I have a question early on when you were talking about Open Arms, and that those folks are familiar with the individuals in our own community. And I think, it's very important that we respect the privacy of those individuals and the fact that they have their own situations, and that they're all very different situations. But I'm just wondering if we have a sense of if there's anything that could be done in terms of additional support, or maybe changes within Open Arms that would allow or make people more comfortable going or taking advantage of places like Open Arms, because I just feel it would be a little bit more secure. There's sort of, different services, including food and other things, and it's not that far away. So I'm just thinking, until we have a different level of service in our own community, are there specific things that we could be doing to alleviate some of the concerns that the individuals in our community have?
Through Mayor Donovan to Councillor Madeira Voss, from our conversations with the staff of Open Arms, again, as Lindsay was mentioning, storage lockers are key. People are concerned about leaving a location to seek shelter, formal shelter, and not having their belongings when they return, or losing their spot, or any of those concerns that we've mentioned tonight. The other piece that we did really want to touch on with Open Arms is that transportation is provided. It is provided for free, and it is return transportation. So if somebody seeks shelter, they are able to come back to Wolfville. Nobody is moving them along. They are able to return to their chosen location. And that was really key for us. I think a big part of it is building relationships, building that trust, allowing people to feel safe and comfortable seeking shelter. And then additionally, the hope is that people will have success in shelter, move to transitional housing, and then kind of stop that cycle when we can. But yeah, the immediate things to provide were really the lockers, ensuring that there's transportation, supporting somebody if they need to make that call, ensuring that somebody can help them make that call so that they can secure a spot and secure transportation. And then also welcoming staff from Open Arms to be in our community, to be working, and to ensure that just that dialogue continues.
Councillor McKay?
Thank you. Yeah, this is a sensitive one for me, so I've been trying to process my whole head around it, but I too am learning as we go through this, and I have, for anyone who knows me, not shocking, a list of questions that I really like some answers to. There's no way we're going to get through all these or answer them all this evening. We probably don't have answers to them all tonight, and that's okay. So having said that, when we do, I'd love it to come back to committee of the whole to have a more information and more fulsome discussion. The last time we talked, there was a lot of talk about doing it with compassion. And I think I struggled hard with that, with the feeling of it needed to be compassionate, but with respect and dignity for the people that we were trying to help. So for me, that's where it was stuck on. Everyone is so individual, as Isabel said. And I think, forcing things upon people or giving things that we think are helpful may not be. So having them involved, giving them some respect and some dignity is where it's really important to me. So I had a list of questions. In the short term, I'm curious if we've had discussions with the individuals that are there to say, because unhoused people aren't uncivilized. Let's have a discussion. We said that there was an issue with cleaning up human waste. If we gave them, I'm sure they don't want to do that. We had a discussion, said, would you be helpful? Would you want to clean up after yourself? Most people do. I'm sure they're not. That's not something they would love to have someone do after them. I'm not a big fan of porta potties. I think this should be running water with, I really feel it should be running water and flushable toilets. I want ours to be open all the time for that. I realize that if it's a distance, anyone won't walk to that. I'm not even sure if they would walk from their tent to there in a porta potty in a snowstorm or what have you. So I did a bunch of research and looked up and there was issues with porta potties, there was issues with all of these things, and everywhere said that having running water and flushable toilet was the most dignified response to this. So I also thought if there was, I looked them up, when people go camping, they have compostable toilets. So you have one that, is yours. It's easily cleaned. You have a waste baskets like that come in it and bags and all these kinds of things. I wonder if we ask those individuals if that would be helpful. I'm sure people would supply them, I'd be happy to do it myself. I want to make sure that they have what they need in their space. And then if that's what they need in the middle of the night, then we open up our spaces and we, as soon as we can in the morning, to make sure that there's a dignified place to wash up. In the immediate, that was my immediate. And just to follow up, because we did have budget discussions, I think Caroline Whitby actually mentioned it earlier. We motioned to go forward with the VIC reservoir. We should be looking at whether we can put showers in those now. They're going to be tendered because we motioned them to move forward. So let's see what those look like. That you can get stalls now that are with toilets and showers right in them that are tiled all through them. So they're easily cleaned by our staff. So can we look at doing that in the revised quotes that I do believe Director D'Souza is probably working on, if not now, very soon. The lockers, same, I think finding a space for those. Councilor Ingham has brought up a couple times, we should have an EDI committee. I think one of those, a committee with people with different skill sets, like social workers and street navigators and all those things would be really great to have. I'm not sure where we are on that committee, but I think that would be something that would be helpful. Because we've been talking a lot about our active transportation and all those things too. So we could have lockers, washrooms, showers, and make it really inclusive. So it's not just unhoused that are using those things, it's all of us. And then everyone is integrated into the community. That for me would be really important. I don't like the segregation of things. So for me, that would be something I'd love to see. So for now, that's sort of where I sit with a list to bring forward if we can. I'd also like to say, I think the training was mentioned in there. That I think that would be helpful for council to have too. I mean, with it, when everyone's questions are answered, we can come back and have even a greater in-depth discussion at committee of the whole in February or March, whenever the information can come back. Thank you.
Through Mayor Donovan to Councillor McKay, thank you for all of that. And thank you for building on some of the suggestions that we brought forward. That's really helpful. About the training. So just so council is aware, staff have been booked into a training session being offered by the Posse Project out of Windsor. There's a little bit of a description of it in your information report. We do have some spots available on the 13th. If any members of council would like to join staff to go through that. February 13th, yes. If that date does not work for council, and I'm very sensitive to the fact that this is a time of year where we are just piling meetings on you. If that time does not work, we can find another time to book another session. And that might be an opportunity as well to kind of bring some more staff into that process as well. So understand that that is an option for council.
Councillor Butler, I think you were going to.
Thank you very much for the presentation. It is a very difficult topic, but it's great to be having conversations about it. A lot of residents they haven't applauded us, but they've certainly commented that it's great that we're starting these conversations when I feel like we have been having these conversations. I know personally, I'm out walking, I'm around, I see things, and I feel like I've been part of a little bit of this for quite some time. Some of the things that I would like more information on, and you touched on it a little bit in the presentation about exactly what our role is. It's a very compassionate driven thing, and some residents, they don't quite understand our role sitting around this horseshoe. So they approach it. Well, they approach me. I'll speak solely for myself. They approach me and they say things like, you're a counselor, you should be doing something. You're a counselor, you should be doing this. You're a counselor, why aren't you doing this? And as a human, I have been doing stuff. As a counselor, I don't know my lane sometimes. And it's very difficult as a counselor to not be able to deliver when you really want to in a compassionate situation. So if there's information that can come back specifically about what as a municipal body we have in our jurisdiction to do, I think there is some confusion about what each level of government does in this situation. And I know that a lot of community supports fall under provincial. And then there are some things federally in terms of funding and et cetera. It's a complicated stream, but we deal with the public more than those levels, I think. So getting approached on the street and telling me I'm doing absolutely nothing is hurtful. When I have gone to visit those that are unhoused since last summer on a weekly basis and checked in and done what I can. As a counselor, I would like to know what I could do in this role. I can handle the human stuff. Thank you for the training. That's good to have those details. I would like more discussion to come back at our next committee of the whole, budget-wise, and what could be done. Have other locations been thought of for this sort of package of things that are presented to us? The tents, the porta potties, the storage lockers, so that, I mean, the library seems to be the location, and whether it's picked because there are already unhoused there, or, so my question would be, has other locations been looked at in the town that would be able to, if one is there and now another is there, it might look like a nice, safe place, so more might come to the library, and eventually there's not going to be room at the library. So has it been looked at where those things can be moved so it can expand if needed? Might be easier to manage from a different location. If it's about privacy, because it is the public library, there's a lot of interaction with the public that maybe has taken away a little bit of that privacy. So just a thought, if there have been other locations that have been thought of for, that might actually be closer and a little bit easier in terms of what's needed and what's not.
Through Mayor Donovan to Councillor Butler, thank you. And thank you for asking for that clarification on what our role is at the municipal level. It is confusing, it's hard. Staff are navigating that as well. And it is challenging. And I think the staff would agree that one of the challenges is the communities doesn't always fully understand sometimes the opportunities that we have, but also the constraints in these roles. So I think that's an excellent suggestion, and we will work to bring that back in the future. As far as locations, the easier question to answer is when we spoke with Open Arms about the possibility of some kind of a support center where things like laundry, showers, a little bit of food, those things could be provided. Unfortunately, again, just within our town facilities, we don't have something of that nature. We're a pretty unique community in that we don't have, like the town of Wolfville doesn't have an arena. We don't have, even our community center is quite limited. We have the 3-season room. It is a 3-season room. So we really don't have, a wealth of facilities. So there was nothing that immediately we could say to Open Arms, we have the perfect thing for you. Part of why we wanted to share that tonight is because folks are here, people are hopefully tuning in at home, and we trust that somewhere in the community, there are organizations or people who will say, we have space, we can put in laundry, we can give access to showers, we can bring in some food. That is beyond the scope of what the town can do. So we are really looking to community members to step up and do that. As for plans for people being at the library or at a better location, we're not there. Folks have chosen the library. A big part of it is because it's a welcoming space. It's a safe space. Libraries across the country are providing services and supports that were never anticipated, and they are safe community spaces, and they are being chosen for that reason. We are not in any place right now to say there's a better place or not. that may be a conversation in the future, but we're not there today.
Councillor Palmer?
Thank you, Mayor Donovan. I just want to say, Councillor Butler, you pretty much took the words out of my mouth again tonight. So Mike and I have been on the same page a couple of weeks in a row. But the question that I would have is really like, what can we do? And I know these people need something, and I think if you can have a dialogue with them, what do they need? What do they want to do? And what can we do to help? The other thing I do want to recognize is that Ms. Green is here, and I want to recognize that the staff at the library has done a superb job of helping us with those guys. And that's not part of your job, but it is part of your job. Thank you. And but I really wonder what lane do we need to be in? What can we do as council? That's really if you could bring that back, that would be great. Thank you.
Deputy Mayor?
Thank you. In anticipating this meeting and the amount of sensitivity and emotion that's required, I thought I would reach out to adjacent towns and find out a little bit about how they service the unhoused. Windsor's Community Center is now open as a warming center, which would allow for a variety of services, but not overnight. In the town of Kentville, where there are many more services available, I asked about the porta potties. And apparently they had 3 recently in different parts of town, but not this winter. However, the town is in process of constructing one in the downtown core that will be a 24-hour gender neutral year-round washroom. So these are the kinds of things that people are trying to provide because the need is there. It might be easier if we had a community center, but we don't really. And so things have evolved. So I'm going to make a motion and see if there's support around the table. I would like to move that even on a temporary basis, we provide a porta potty. Maybe later we could look at composting facilities, but I think it's called for. And also on the town staff recommendation, storage lockers and a food cupboard. And that's my motion.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Does that motion have a seconder?
I'll second it for discussion
Okay.
purposes.
Sure. I thought there was a discussion coming before that, but you seconded it. Okay, we have an active motion. Comments by members of council. Councillor McKay?
I don't disagree on washroom facilities. I still don't love a porta potty. I would much rather have a discussion with the individuals to see what they need before we decide what they want. I think that is paramount in it. What will it be used? Do they want it? Is that the right location? Did we talk to them? Because if we did not, I think that's the first thing we should do is with some dignity and respect, have a conversation with them and see what they need. If it comes back in 2 weeks' time and we say that's what they said, awesome, I would support.
Other comments?
I guess I would like to get that similar feedback. The other questions that I have is around our existing washrooms and whether there's anything that could be done with those public washrooms. I mean, I know they're a little bit distant from where some of the folks are staying, but whether there's, you know, it just to me presents itself as being a bit safer. I mean, I understand what Councillor Ingham was saying around porta potties and the need for not just the folks that are unhoused, but also the the community oven and other things that happen in that space. But I would really like to get a bit more of a comparison between one option and the other, if we could.
Counselor Butler.
I would also like a little more information about the actual storage lockers. I'm assuming they'll be outside, not inside. And it does create a sense of safety, but being outside, they'll be left unattended. So can they not be broken into or stolen? I don't know what they look like, or what, is it like a high school locker, or is it something a little more more concrete? How is that? How are they maintained? That kind of thing. There wasn't enough really in the info report about that. And a little bit more about if this does go through, placement, communication, how do you communicate that it's obviously there for those that are living at the library, but it is being delivered to us as a public washroom for everyone. So how is that communicated? What does that look like in its space? I am not against having the luxury that is given to all of us when we need to use facilities. It is just, I would feel more comfortable with more information and more discussion to benefit everyone's needs, as well as those that I think this is just solely driven at. So if that's possible.
Counselor Ingham.
Thank you, Councilor Butler. I do agree with that. I think it's more important that we do have a discussion on what do they really want. As you talked about the porta potties, it should be, for other people to use that are in the park also. And I'm just a little bit confused on the location on that. Being mindful that, they should have running water, there's other things too. So just a porta potty, but it pumps it out, right? I mean, it's not like you could take a shower in a porta potty. And I understand, but here's the thing, this fulsome discussion is such an important issue that I would feel more comfortable if we talked about it at a committee of the whole. And as we're going through budget, it would feel more comfortable for me to know where our budgetary dollars and our taxpayer dollars are going in order to support this project. That's how I feel right now. I want to be really supportive, but I want to get it right. And I feel like I don't know if we have it right now.
Other comments? I'm going to, apparently I don't have to change my chair, but I'm going to hand the chair over to the deputy mayor and make my comments. So that's why we just want to make sure I will be the last comments, if not. Okay. I understand what everybody has said, and I agree that it would be wonderful to have, and hopefully we can have this discussion, and it would be great to have for everybody in the community. I've had emails from people who are walkers along the trail or joggers along the trail who would love to have a washroom and have some running water. And I think that's something we should definitely work to. I am very conscious that there are people sleeping rough tonight that will need a washroom tonight. I think that when staff came to us with information, I think it was $300 for a month. And so if we spent $300 after, say, staff or the library staff did ask tomorrow, or I see people in the audience who are in constant contact with daily contact with the two individuals who are now in tents to say, would this help you? I'm comfortable with supporting this motion tonight. And if we should hear, no, they're not, then we would not spend the $300. I think that for a month, $300 is not a lot of money if this is something that will meet the needs of two individuals who are there. This town has had porta potties all over. I was up at Reservoir Park a few weeks ago, and our porta potty was being taken out. I guess nobody uses it in the winter, but I'm sure it will go back there in the summer. So they move around and in and out. I think that it is quite conceivable in the next day or two that individuals can be spoken to. If it's not something that is helpful, then the motion doesn't, should council agree with this, it doesn't have to go in. It is my understanding of both from the discussions I've had with individuals and that I've had with library staff, and also my concern for our own staff and their health and safety, that $300 is not a lot of money to spend on this, that frankly, and with respect to dignity, it is much more dignified to have access to a porta potty than to the ground around where you are sleeping. I like the idea of Councillor McKay's of composting toilets. I am a little concerned myself about tents. I mentioned this today simply because I worry about the safety. I worry about fires. I worry about people being hurt. But for me, in the short term, this seems to be a not a very expensive thing to do for a month or two as we try and figure things out. We've delayed committee of the whole now, doesn't happen until the 14th of February. Any motion at that meeting would have to go to the 27th. We are now more than a month away if we should have a discussion in February. So I will be supporting this. I support it for the short-term benefit of those people who need that facility right now. I trust our staff to communicate to our community, and I also trust us to make longer-term decisions. I think it would be great to have a more fulsome facility. I know how long it has taken us I'm looking at Director D'Souza to get the Welcome Center going, and you know, these things take time, and I'm sure that a full service washroom, which may be needed there, will be much more than $300 this month. So I will be supporting this motion. I'll pass it to the acting mayor. Question? Oh.
Councillor.
I guess I can't remember the exact detail of the wording of the motion, but I would like to make sure that it's clear that this is intended as a 1 month or very short-term solution as we explore other options. Because, I mean, I understand your point, Mayor Donovan, about there are people there tonight who need support with this, and that's a reality that I don't think any of us can deny. But I would like to make sure that this would be a very short term, that we realize that people need running water, they need other things, and the option that Councillor McKay suggested of composting toilets, you know, there could be other things. And we really do need to have, I think, a fulsome discussion on this topic at Committee of the Whole, where we can examine our budget more. And I mean, $300 to me today is not, obviously that's not a big deal. And it's a very short-term thing, but I would like to make sure that this then is moved to Committee of the Whole, where we could have a more fulsome discussion that includes looking at our budget and what changes we might need to add, because we are in that process at the moment of developing our budget. And it's important that this is included and all of those options are explored. So I don't know if we need to make a change.
Well, I made the motion. I'm willing to amend it to look at immediate needs, and long-term could be discussed at a COW meeting. You seconded, so if
I'm fine.
that's all right with you?
Yes, that's fine.
Clarity on the motion, because it had lockers and everything else in it.
It
as
had
well,
what
so-
staff asked for.
So what is the new motion?
Okay, so I would move that council approve the establishment of a porta potty immediately, and other options could be looked into, but that would be an immediate 1 month installation, and that the staff recommendations to explore storage lockers and a food cupboard would also be looked into and installed if possible.
Could we have a reference to this item going back to COW in that motion?
Sure.
Penny.
I don't know if that makes sense. I don't know about procedurally if that's correct or not.
I don't think it is.
No, no,
It's a very
no, it's a very long motion. And I think there needs,
two things you might want to have.
maybe if you have two separate motions on that, I think you need two
One is
separate,
an immediate.
A motion.
and one's
And then some
in
direction
it.
maybe, because the rest was just a direction to go to back to committee of the whole. So the first one could be your motion if it's amendable. Council approves a porta potty for the installation for 1 month. And then we can give further direction to come back to Cal with all of it, because we all have questions. I'm sure we'll come up with more and come back to committee of the whole for whatever that comes back as.
Okay.
Can we include the location of that?
Well, I think that staff and library staff have looked at the west end of the library structure. Am I right?
I just wanted to be clear to the public that that we did talk about it, that is available to everybody else that wants to use it, not just the
It should
unhomed.
be totally visible if it's at the west
But,
end.
but
under the
apparently
roof.
it's not very visible. So I just wanted to be clear that it is available to everybody to use. That's all.
Sure.
So I don't know if you need that in your motion.
Version again, please, and then we're going to have a second one soon.
Okay. I would move that council approve the installation of a porta potty temporarily for 1 month at the west end of the library. Councillor Madeira.
I'm fine with that.
Okay.
But the west end, like, it's right in the parking lot, right there, right? Alice, yeah.
Close to where the bikes were parked.
Oh, excuse me. Would you like to say something, Councillor? McKay?
I just had one question. So, but we are going to talk to the individuals first to just make sure that that is a good location, that it actually will be used. Otherwise, it serves no purpose. Not no purpose. Doesn't serve the purpose for that. For their use. Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else wish to speak to this motion? Can I have a question? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Contrary minded? So that's unanimous. Okay, you get the gavel back.
All right, Councillor McKay, I'm looking to you. Do you have a second? Did you? I think you had the beginnings of a second motion.
No, I don't think
No,
I needed
you
to
did.
do a motion.
Okay.
I just looked at the CAO
Break
just
your
to make sure-
mind
just to
up.
give back.
Yeah.
Just
Direction.
direction to come back to answer the questions. We'll have a more fulsome discussion at committee of the whole that had lockers, food cupboard, any other questions. Mine were more on partnerships and those sorts of things as well. So whatever we've come up with in our minds for questions, that would be okay.
Okay. So,
CAOs.
members of council, if there are additional questions, everything from a full service comfort center at the library to other things and support services you may think, I'm sure we'll all think of things tonight. If we would send them to Barb or Lindsay? Which, both?
If you don't mind, I think it would be helpful for any of this to go through our interim CAO.
Okay,
So that Rob is aware of where council has those questions, where those knowledge gaps are, so that Rob can hold us accountable and ensure that we're all going in the same
Okay.
direction.
fair enough. And I would open to any members of the public who want to have questions to do it through any member of council who can add your questions or comments to ours. Is that fair?
Can I ask if there are questions, if they went to all of town council, that would be great, because that would keep us all thinking and on the same page.
So we have a town council email address that is towncouncil@wolfville.ca that does go to council, also goes to the interim CAO. I believe it goes to the clerk. And does it also go to you, Barb?
It does.
It does, and potentially other people. I know it used to go to the director of finance, so does it go to you, Devin? No. All right, so all those who should know will have those questions, and please feel free to do.
And Mayor Donovan, just a point for ease of access and reaching out to council. The link to that can be found on wolfville.ca. It can be found multiple locations, including the town council page. to make it easy for folks.
Thank you.
Your worship, from a process perspective. Yeah, from
Yes.
a process perspective, well, what staff will commit to do is we've heard a number of key considerations this evening that will require follow-up. It's anticipated what we'll do is put together just a very brief scoping document. This is based on the feedback and the questions presented. Staff will undertake an analysis to include the following considerations. We'll circulate that to council. If there's any omissions or errors on that we have not picked up, then it provides the opportunity for feedback, and that will help us to make the best use of our time between now and the next committee of the whole meeting, so that we can make sure that we're undertaking a thorough analysis. And in the event that there's a particular consideration that staff did not pick up on this evening, it provides that opportunity to have that thoroughness that is inherent to this important matter. So thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, thank you, council. That brings us, this is just an information report, the quarterly council attendance report. I don't know if there are any questions of council to staff about that. No? Okay. Then I would call for a motion to adjourn. Thank you. I don't have an in camera, do you? All right, mine just says regular meeting ending. Mine doesn't, so we have, some of us have and some of us don't. On the motions list, okay. That might have been just typo from other meetings. All right, we have a motion to adjourn. I am trying to learn that we do not need a seconder. Thank you, Councillor